Hey everyone, I'm back. Was I ever gone? Kinda. Oh man, I don't even know where to start. Hello, I'm Alexa. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, cool, welcome. I make videos about product design, what it's like working remotely for a tech company that's based in San Francisco. About a year ago, I moved from San Francisco down to San Diego, where I now live with my fiance and our dog. And so I make videos about that as well, what it's like living and working here. And I also recently tore my Achilles. It's been about 2 months, and I did so playing basketball, which is a huge part of my life. And it was kind of frustrating and sad and all the things. And my life was flipped upside down. So for the last 2 months, I've been focusing a lot on that. But yeah, I'm back, and I'm back making design videos. I was making some videos about my Achilles rupture, because that's what was top of mind for me. But essentially, about a week ago, I put out a call for questions on my Instagram story because I was feeling like I'm getting back into making the design videos, and I wanted some inspiration and like an understanding of like what some people were thinking about and how I could be helpful. So I've collected all those questions, and today I wanted to do kind of like a cozy Q&A, and we're gonna kick things off. I hope you enjoy it. So actually the first question here is someone asked about the interview process. And I actually am in the middle of writing a video all about the interview process. So I'm going to skip over that one for now. But if you have any specific questions as it relates to the interview process, drop me a message down below in the comments. That will be helpful for me to review so I can get a better understanding how I could help you create some clarity around what the interview process might be like. But hang tight, that is coming. The second question, I finished a UX bootcamp last year. Awesome, congrats. And I've been failing all of my interviews since. Any tips? Well, first of all, I mean, failing interviews or, not passing to the next round, it sucks. It just does. And I've actually been there. I've gone through long periods of time where I was interviewing and trying to get my next job, and I just kept getting hit with rejection. And it just sucks. Like, I feel for you. One of the main things to keep in mind is that you gotta try to learn from those failures. And you can approach that in a couple of ways. One is you could try to request feedback from the interview team. They're not always going to be able to provide you with feedback, or might not even be willing. There's a whole number of reasons that it could be that they're not even allowed to provide you with feedback. And so the first is just to try and see. Some people, some teams do this. And so I would definitely recommend that if you are failing and you're constantly getting hit with that rejection, try to collect feedback where you can. That's the number one thing. The other thing, and then this is what I ended up doing as well, is I started asking for feedback from other people in the design community. And I asked them for feedback specifically as it related to the stage in the interview process that I was not being able to pass. So if it's that first portfolio review, try to get that feedback on your portfolio from others. For me, from what I remember when I was failing all those interviews, it was a step that was further along because it was a portfolio review, but it was my presentation version. So I started to get feedback, not on my website, like the public portfolio, but on the offline portfolio that I was presenting into a large group. It could also be a design exercise or a whiteboard challenge, or it could be other types of interviews that you have with the engineering team maybe, or the PM team. So just try to collect feedback as it relates to the step in the process that you're not passing. That would be my recommendation. A couple other things too is congrats, you finished your UX bootcamp about a year ago. That's great. Make sure you continue to practice design as you're interviewing. So that could mean that you can continue to iterate on the projects that you already have that are in your portfolio. You could be starting new projects. It could be a personal project. It could be maybe you try to do some freelance design work on the side to, keep getting some experience. But that's going to help you continue to hone in on those craft skills that you do need to land a good product design job. So that'd be the other thing to think about. And then the other is during the whole discovery process, trying to find a new job, I recommend reaching out to designers that work at the companies that you want to work at and asking them questions, specific questions. Not necessarily asking them for an interview or asking them to refer you, but for example, let's say someone works at Instagram and you want to work there. Why don't you try to reach out to one of the designers that work there, ask them about the team, you can ask them about the hiring process, you can ask them what it would look like to stand out as a candidate for interviewing for one of their jobs. A lot of it's perseverance. Keep going. I'm rooting for you. You can keep some good people close, collect feedback, keep the energy high. I know you can get through this and you can land that job. All right, next question. Is it true only UX designers are in demand in the US and not with UI? From my experience, Most of the sort of UX, UI, product design types of jobs are going to be at tech companies, and they're going to be looking for more generalists. So this is a hard conversation because the title thing is also kind of confusing and nuanced. There's nuance to it, but for the most part, the most jobs that are available at tech companies to work in-house on a product is you're gonna wanna look for a product design job. Oh, and then, that all to say there's this whole other world of freelance and even the agency side that I'm just not as familiar with. And I think the titles on that side of the industry as well could look a little bit different. And so you might find that there are more UX versus UI designers that might work at an agency or might specialize in different skill sets as it relates to the user experience side versus the user interface side. So it's hard to say, but what I do know is that there are a lot of jobs available for product designers, and I am certain about that. Okay, next question. Where do you get UX inspo from? Well, I think this one's a little bit obvious for me. I draw a lot of inspiration from the products that I use that I love. And I think that it's really important that as someone who works in tech and is a designer, that you have those products that you just like appreciate, and you appreciate it from the craft level. You start to see things a little bit differently. I actually remember when I just started going to art school in San Francisco, and in one of my first studio classes, one of my teachers asked the class if we could all name one of our favorite designers. It was like something like that, and almost everyone in the class didn't have an answer to that, including myself. That stuck with me. One that I really love is Instagram. I especially love Instagram stories. I think it's really great what they've been doing with Reels. So that's one that comes top of mind for me that I love using. There's a whole other side of this too, because I do draw inspiration a lot depending on the relevancy to what I'm looking for inspiration for. For example, right now at work, kind of in the discovery phase of this new area of the product that I'm working on. I'm trying to collect a lot of names of a lot of products that are kind of within the scope of this area. Can't talk too detailed about it, right? But collecting a lot of names of companies, and I'm just kind of going out there and pulling inspiration from their products and their websites as it relates to the thing that I'm going to be working on. I'm not being picky about it. I'm just I want to go out there and see it all, and then from there I can kind of categorize and organize, and then I'll be able to see so-and-so company is doing this really great, and I'll draw inspiration from them that way. Okay, next question. How do you set up a project? Do you go through fast iterations of designs? I'd say it varies depending on the project, and that's just kind of the truth of it. Usually at the beginning of the quarter, how it works is that the projects are scoped, usually by the product management team, and the design team will also get visibility into this. And then we do this thing called t-shirt sizing them. So it could be extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, and they're all defined sizes for our whole team. And so based off of a set criteria, I could then t-shirt size the different projects. So if it's an extra large project, probably gonna take at least a full quarter, maybe even more time to complete. And then versus maybe let's say an extra small project where based off of the criteria, this project is probably gonna take less than a week. And so if I'm working on this extra large project, the amount of iterations, the amount of work that's involved, it's gonna be a lot. Versus with the extra small project, the amount of times I'm iterating on that design, it could be really minimal. So that's why it varies, and it's really dependent. A lot of the time when people are starting out in their career in design, and they're maybe in a boot camp or even in a design program at an art school like I went through, I experienced this as well. You're often starting from scratch and creating a completely new project, maybe even a completely new product. I would think that's a lot more similar to the level of work and the level of iteration you might find in an extra large project. And the only other thing I'll say about that, because the question says, do you go through fast iterations of design? The fastest way I think to iterate and to design anything is to go analog. So using pen, paper, or pencil and paper, that's gonna be the quickest way. So I often find myself, for almost all of the projects I'm working on, I'll start with sketches just to get the ideas that are going on in my head onto paper. It's gonna be the quickest way and most efficient way, I think, to start thinking through a problem visually. All right, next question. Best resources to learn product UX design for a software developer. Well, I don't necessarily have any resources I'd recommend that are solely for someone who has a software development background, because I don't have that background, so I'm not sure if it would differ any. But I do have a number of free and low-cost resources that I've curated that are on my website. And so it'll be linked in the description below. I highly recommend going and checking that out. It's a number of books, podcasts, YouTube channels. I also sell a PDF product down there for people getting started, which in the PDF you'll find some example prompts for projects and some of my top tips to help you get prepared for interviewing. Oh, some colleges. People often ask me what sort of design programs to get into. So I have both the colleges and some boot camps that I highly recommend that also have some discount. I have some discount codes there as well. There's a lot of good resources there. I would love your feedback if you find something in there and you have questions about it, or you feel like there's some missing resources in there. Feel free to, again, leave me a comment and I'd love to talk it out. All right, next question is, why do recruiters take time to get back to you after an interview? This is a great question. And especially if you're just starting to interview for the first time, it can be kind of daunting if you've interviewed and in your world, like you're just so excited and you want to hear back as soon as possible. Did you get the job? If not, it's okay. Like, how can I move on to my the next thing? But in reality, it doesn't always work that way. And it can take, I'd say, upwards of 1 to 2 weeks usually for a recruiter to get back to you about the results of the interview. And that is because they're often interviewing more than one person. What's happening in the back end is that the interview team has to interview all of the candidates, and that could take some time. And then they also have to all come together after all of the interviews and talk about it and provide feedback and have a discussion. So if you haven't heard back and it's been a week, even 2 weeks, it's probably okay. But the next thing I'll say is that, like, if you're wondering what's going on, I would highly recommend reaching out to the recruiter that you're in contact with about the role. It's their job to be, kind of like your person, to provide you with everything you would need to be set up for success for the interview. Next question is, how to stand out from the crowd when applying for product design jobs? This is great. I love this question. I mean, the number one thing I recommend is to make it personal. Like, make it as personal as possible when you're interviewing at a company. And this could come out in a couple different ways. One is that, like, I know often when you're interviewing, you're probably like applying to a lot of jobs. And so at the very beginning, it may not feel super personal to you because you're just trying to like put yourself out there and apply to as many jobs as you can. Well, when you do hear back from a company, it's really important that you do your research and you get to know them really well, because you want to be able to ask very specific questions, be knowledgeable about the product and the company, and like show that you're actually interested in them and what they're creating and making. The other part that I think is really specific to product design jobs is to try to make your portfolio personal as well. One really obvious example I think with this is that if you're applying for a company, let's say a job that you know that they're looking for someone to design for their mobile app, then make sure that the work in your portfolio is representative of the type of work that they're looking to bring someone on to do. So if you have mobile product design work, make sure that's the first few projects that they're gonna see on your portfolio. Or if you have the opportunity to interview with them for a 30-minute call, make sure the mobile app projects are the ones that you're showing them, because that's the work that they're looking for, right? So that could also work when it comes to industry. So if you do have a project, let's say in health tech, and you actually do have a health tech project, it might make sense to use that project as a part of your portfolio presentation, because that's going to be relevant to the work that they're trying to bring someone in to do at their company. So make it personal. Then ultimately, I think one of the most important things to do when you're interviewing is thoroughly read the job description. From my experience, at least, like, we spend a lot of time writing our job descriptions and making sure we get them right. My assumption, and it's not always right, but my assumption is that they've spent time writing that job description. So that's gonna be the source of truth that I'm gonna use to go into the interview so that I can make my interview as personal as possible for this company. And I'm not saying every company does a good job writing JDs, job descriptions. I think that's potentially a whole other conversation in itself. But if you're interviewing with them, I would make that assumption, because that's like some of the best information that you have accessible to you to leverage to do your best in the interview. Yeah, I hope that's helpful. If you have any other questions as it relates to that too, let me know. Okay, I think that's gonna wrap up this video for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and most importantly, I hope it was helpful for you. If you're new to my channel, my name is Alexa. I make videos here on YouTube about product design, careers in tech, what it's like living and working remotely in San Diego, California. If you're here at the very, very end and you enjoyed this video and you thought it was helpful, I'd love it if you could give it a like. If you're new to my channel, I'd also love for you to be a subscriber. That's gonna be all for now though, and I do hope to see you in that next one. Bye.